Welcome to Unemployed and Afraid, a podcast that explores the glorious mess of building your own business with the people doing it. I'm your host and fellow business builder, Kim Kerton. Thank you for being here. Let's get into some good, honest, small business chat. I want to share with you some insight I have landed on recently that's helping me get less attached to the outcome of all of the things that we try to do in business, in case it helps you too to feel a little more comfortable with this aspect of it. I've spent the last almost 5 years now, which blows my mind, trying to figure out and for the most part control what's going to be next. When I decided to jump off the path of my previous role in audio media and into the unknown, I thought I would have it worked out within 6 months. Now, that jump was pretty unfortunate timing given the start of said 6 months was Jan 2020, and by March I was shitting myself, realizing that the money I'd saved to work things out wasn't going to outlast the unknown of a bloody pandemic, and I'd have to make some moves fast. What came next, as you've probably heard me say before, is my partner and I leaving Sydney for cheaper pastures and getting stuck into working on our future selves. In that time, over these 5 years, I've developed 3 businesses. Technically, it's actually 4, as I was a yoga teacher for a hot minute, but the purpose of keeping things in 3 to demonstrate a point, I'll keep it to just these ones and summarize them super fast for you. But I want to give you some detail, as it is important context to the outcomes that I realize now I have been holding on to way too tightly. The first business was an e-commerce direct-to-consumer handmade ceramics homewares brand, of all things, which developed a lovely following, always sold out, and can still be found at some of the best Airbnbs in the country. I'm super proud of that, and I thought that one might be it, that business might be it for me, as I adored it. But the math just didn't math when it came to time spent hand making, output and income, and a business that required, frankly, a 200 kilo at-home kiln didn't really support the fact that we wanted to move around a bit more. We knew where we were wasn't going to be our forever home. And it also missed a huge part of work that I love, which I'll just categorize simply as media. I mean, the whole time I was a ceramicist, I was still consumed by my daily emails about the media and marketing and advertising industry, and I listened to an obscene amount of podcasts to get that hit. So it took a minute for me to notice that. But I did a hashtag pivot away from that business and reverted it back to a really fun hobby that will sometimes still end up for sale on my Instagram. But there was a time when I thought that business was going to be it, that I was going to scale up and it would look a certain way and I'd create and sell, be in a certain type of store and be featured in certain publications. I really had very specific goals and outcomes to that experience when actually in hindsight, claiming it back as a hobby was what I needed. And the next 2 are, of course, super relevant to right now and the huge goals that I'm getting quite attached to with outcomes that I want to change. And so the second one is a content business. That's this podcast. Hi. Based on the insight and instinct that conversations about the experience of desiring and building a business needed a stack more nuance than what was existing in the podcast landscape, heaps more nuance than super successful, like Shark Tank level business owners talking to their super successful friends, which is no shade. It's just the truth that most business podcasts are successful people talking to successful people about their success. And I knew that the journey, because I was in it, I knew that the journey of creating a business that is maybe smaller scale, but still important, is filled with many more personal challenges and moments of what the actual fuck that was being covered by those more headline driven stories. So I made it a totally human podcast that explores the intersection of personal growth and entrepreneurship from the people doing it across all industries and business sizes. And my goal, as you'll know, given I share it with you often, is to make this the #1 podcast for entrepreneurs and business builders, for it to be your secret sauce, the secret sauce you tell your friends about, so that I can help 100,000 people get into and stay into business for themselves, whether that's a full-time gig or a side hustle. It's all business. I'd like to have a regular sponsor that treats the show like an investment, that helps me financially to build its reach and impact. And I'd love to publish a book or 2 on the subject to continue the support. These are pretty fixed goals, right? Big picture visions to hold. And the last business is, of course, a service model that I'm in. My work as a podcast strategist and consultant for brands and business owners who want to create entertainment-led marketing to build brands and connect with an intended audience. So in that role, I build insight-led strategies, create show concepts, network pillars, talent source and coach, educate through workshops, and grow existing shows through strategic brand auditing. The goals for this are to work naturally with as many big and emerging brands as I can. I want to be the go-to expert on podcast strategy and growth in Australia. I want to be invited to contribute to articles, to speak, and to even hold a significant role of impact in the podcast industry in Australia, perhaps with one of the major networks. So again, big, lofty goals held in the vision. So what I'm holding in my heart and mind as what's next is that specific type of sponsor. And that's caused me a fair bit of heartache trying to achieve that, especially as without the support, it's hard to grow a show to the level that I want to grow this show, as I am only one gal. And I've got that picture in my mind of the work as a podcast strategist and specifically the type of opportunities I want to be able to create off of that big picture. And without boring you with any more specifics, I have an exact picture of what I want my what's next to look like, where I'll live doing it. And it is causing me hell to think about it because it is entirely out of my control. All of my goals are entirely out of my control. The thing about going after your dreams is that you cannot control the process of getting them or if you get them at all. You can only control what you're doing in the moment to contribute to the potential vision. And holding on too tightly to how we want or think we want the outcome to look could be keeping us, it's definitely keeping me, locked in a cycle of dissatisfaction and stress. It's probably going to make you miss the magic that's already happened. Things you never even thought of, let alone planned for, which if you're anything like me, they come in and you celebrate it, but only for like a microsecond before it's back into the grind and working on your business and working towards the other big thing that you want. The thing that when you're like, oh, when I get that, I will feel this. I will be successful. And this relentless pursuit of the stuff we can't control for sure could be making us blind to new things that might be trying to get themselves noticed. There's a touch of woo-woo in this thinking, I appreciate, but what is happening around us? What are we being triggered on? What are we being pinged or called to? What's a new idea that's kind of sitting there that is different to perhaps what we planned, so we give it less attention? If you listen to this show regularly, which I do hope you do, you've probably noticed a certain theme with me of late in these solo episodes where I'm sharing with you more of the deeper insights into my own experience of personal growth and entrepreneurship and sometimes advice and ideas and things like that. But the certain theme has definitely been about shooting for opportunities, like full on shooting my shot and not hearing back. It's been about things feeling a bit scary, maybe extra scary technically, of putting a lot of energy out and trying very, very hard to achieve everything I want and not feeling like I'm getting anywhere. That's definitely been a theme for a while. So I can tell you from experience now, like that vibe, that energy, what happens with that energy when it's dominant, it's not it. It's not sustainable and it doesn't help. It's actually horrible. It's really challenging on a physical, mental, and soul level. And I feel like you'll really understand that when I say the soul level. It's so personally challenging. It affects health, sleep, relationships, like all that quality of life stuff that, we're like, we get into business to make things that are amazing. We expect it to be hard work, but, and we do expect to have to make some sacrifices, but the length of time and the intensity of that, it can be so deeply challenging. It's definitely been the case for me. And far from spiritually bypassing that experience, because it's important to acknowledge that all of those feelings of trying and failing and feeling frustrated are very real, likely to be experienced by most people and happen often. It's part of the process of doing hard things. But focusing on all the things that I don't have or can't control accessing isn't going to get me closer to the great things that I'm building that are out of sight. And that might be the case for you too. There are things that are out of sight that perhaps we never could have even imagined could be a result of all of the trying. It doesn't help to hold on to that fixed goal when what we really need to hold on to is hope of the unknown, which is a huge part of maintaining motivation, that hope and that, what could come in today, that kind of energy. That gets us through some tough stuff. Holding on too tightly makes us lose some of the magic of the entire experience of building something you're proud of. When we become so fixed on a specific outcome that looks one way, a TEDx talk, a book publishing deal, 6-figure sales months, like a specific client, a specific opportunity, whatever, and we're wrapping it up in that language of, when this happens, I'll insert emotion, action, or sense of achievement here. Like, when this happens, I will be happy, or I will be feeling good, or I'll be feeling successful. At some point, we really do have to let go of a predetermined outcome and just crack on with whatever task is in front of us. To not worry about what might be happening 10 steps down the line, or what we're trying to control 10 steps down the line, or what it is that we want to happen. That's the aspect I've been working really hard on lately, like truly letting go of the things that I want or that I pitch for, the things that I want to invite in, or the things I haven't started working on that I also want, and just enjoying wherever I'm at with a renewed sense of optimism and hope that potentially I have framed the goals generally, and if I maybe loosen up the edges a bit, I could be really excited by what eventually comes in. And doing this, even though I am still also feeling very on brand afraid. Believe me, it's a battle. Even just saying like that previous statement, I'm like, nope, misses a bunch of nuance, because even when I'm enjoying the moment and just working on what's like right in front of me right now, I'm thinking about what I need to do to get revenue in for this next phase, and what happens if this doesn't happen or this doesn't happen, if that thing happens, and I can go here and do this like constant refreshing of emails and LinkedIn and trying to hold on to some semblance of control. It is like a UFC fight in my brain all day long, and potentially it is for you too. But when you shoot for big things, it's often that reframe that it's the first exposure that we have with what's possible. When we shoot for those things, we can start to see, to believe that what we want are possible and could happen, and might very well happen. The likelihood is, though, that whatever the thing that you shoot for that expanded your awareness of what's possible won't happen exactly how you plan, and it certainly won't happen at the time you want it. You still have to hold the vision, do the work, and at the same time, let it go entirely and have some trust that the right things will come through for you at the right time. Trust. Maybe that's just what I should have called this episode. Let's hold on to some bloody trust. So if you're holding on to a specific outcome for your business, tightly imagining what it can look like and when it might happen, even though you do know deep down you can't control any of that, like I've been, it might be time to let it all go, to detach from the outcome entirely. Instead, what if we concentrated just on what's right in front of us? One thing at a time, forgetting the next big thing we want. As when we're building something like a business, which is what we're all doing at different scales and phases, a new path, a hashtag pivot, a life-changing opportunity, like whatever it is, there is so much about this process that is largely outside of our control. Maybe if we don't even consider attaching ourselves to the specifics of a dream and trying to force it to be exactly how we want it to look and when, we can invite in entirely new energy, new thinking, and some real proper enjoyment in the now. It feels a lot more calming than holding on too tight. For me, that means less checking of emails. It might look like less following up. Not no following up, huge believer in following up, but just maybe not quite so much, or putting quite so much pressure, or focusing on the fact that I haven't heard back and just like throwing it out, hey, what's going on? More of a follow-up than being intense about it or being stressed about it. It might look like less fantasizing about what life will look like when said things happen. And that is meaning less conversations, even with my partner about it. Oh, when this happens, we can do this, or this happens like that. It's nice to shoot for the future, but it kind of makes the now feel less fulfilling. And that's not fair to the now. It looks for me like making a set of achievable tasks to get through that I know are serving me and my business right now, and that they're serving a future me, which will likely benefit from it too in some non-fixed way. It means having some trust that my wildest dreams, that your wildest dreams might not even be close to the amazingness that actually will happen. There's something really exciting in that thought. That like bit of excitement and good energy, it goes a really long way when you're taking on the task of building something wonderful for yourself. Our bodies, our minds, and our businesses might just thank us for this physical and mental shift in state and behavior. So if you're in the mood for a bit of an energy shift, maybe we can do this together. Drop me a comment if you're listening on Spotify about this episode or your general business building vibes right now. I would love to hear from you, and make sure you get yourself access to the Unemployed and Afraid Substack. There's a link in the show notes for you to add your email address so you can get the newsletter into your inbox. If you can believe it, I'm dropping even more overshares and insightful business chat over there. Podcasting and newsletters are good friends. That's my podcast strategy tip to leave with you if you're also a passionate podcaster or one in the making. I am endlessly grateful to you for choosing this show to support you. That is exactly what it's here for, to create more passionate business owners who believe in themselves, no matter the scale, the industry, the size of the business, or even if you're still just thinking about it. That's what it's here for. And I am so grateful to you for supporting me by listening, and in turn, continuing to invest in yourself. Thank you for listening to Unemployed and Afraid, the podcast for small business builders with your host, me, Kim Kerton. If you love it, you can say thanks with a star rating and a review. And of course, join the community on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Find us at Unemployed and Afraid wherever you're hanging out, and I'll see you there.